You know what drives economists crazy? Millennials shouldn't be broke on paper. They're crushing it. Most educated generation in history, college degrees everywhere, working professional jobs their parents would have killed for. Earning more than Gen X did at the same age, at least on the spreadsheet. But somehow, they can't afford a house. They're drowning in debt. They're living paycheck to paycheck while making $75,000 a year. They're the richest generation on paper and the poorest in practice. Welcome to the Poorest Rich Generation. Born between 1981 and 1996, millennials were sold the clearest formula in American history. Go to college, get a degree. Success is guaranteed. It was supposed to be the safest bet you could make. Except it was a lie. And that lie didn't just cost them money. It rewired their entire relationship with money in ways that still confuse everyone watching. Picture this. It's 2005. You're 18 years old, sitting in a guidance counselor's office. Everyone, your parents, your teachers, the entire culture tells you the same thing. College isn't optional. It's the only path. And sure, it costs $40,000 a year, but you'll make it back easily with your degree. So you sign the papers, you take the loans, you do exactly what you're supposed to do. Then you graduate in 2009, right into the worst recession since the Great Depression. The job that was supposed to pay $60,000, it's an unpaid internship. The career ladder, it doesn't exist. And that $160,000 in loans still do, with interest.
According to the Federal Reserve, the average millennial carries $33,000 in student debt. But that number hides the real story. 25% of them owe over $7,000. And that debt never goes away. Can't declare bankruptcy on it, can't negotiate it down. It just sits there, growing forever. And here's what that did psychologically. It normalized financial instability as their baseline. For Gen X, debt was an emergency. For boomers, it was shameful. For millennials, it's just life. They've never known what financial security feels like, so they stopped chasing it. The Brookings Institution found that student debt delays homeownership by an average of 7 years. Delays marriage, delays kids, delays everything the previous playbook said you'd do by 30. But you can't delay your life forever. So instead, they changed the game. If the old rules promise success and deliver debt, then the old rules are dead. Time to write new ones. Here's something that baffles older generations. Millennials won't buy a $15 CD, but they'll pay $9.99 per month for Spotify forever. They can't afford a $1,200 couch, but they'll rent the runway for $89 per month indefinitely. It seems wasteful until you realize what's actually happening. Millennials can't afford to own anything, so they built an entire economy around renting everything. A Deloitte study found the average millennial has 17 active subscriptions. Streaming services, meal kits, fitness apps.
Software, cloud storage, subscription boxes for literally everything. It adds up to hundreds of dollars a month. But each individual charge feels manageable. And that's the psychology. $12.99 doesn't trigger the same financial alarm bells as $300. Even though 12 months of $12.99 costs more than buying the thing outright, it doesn't feel that way in the moment. It's financial sleight of hand, and they're doing it to themselves. But here's the deeper truth. Ownership feels impossible, so access became the new goal. Millennials watched home prices triple while their wages stagnated. A house isn't an if, it's a never. A car is a depreciating liability. Physical possessions feel like anchors when you might need to move for the third time this year chasing work. So why buy when you can access? Why commit to owning when your entire economic reality is temporary? The subscription model isn't a preference, it's adaptation. They're renting their lives because ownership was taken off the table before they even started playing. Now we get to the part that really confuses people. Millennials aren't just broke by accident. A lot of them are broke by choice. Bank of America found that 68% of millennials prioritize experiences over material goods, even when it means having less savings. They'll have $847 in their checking account and book a $1,200 trip to Portugal. They'll skip contributing to their 401k to attend Coachella. They'll choose the boutique coffee every morning instead of saving $150 a month.
And before you call it irresponsible, here's what's actually happening. They've done the math, and it doesn't work. The National Association of Realtors says the median home price is $417,000. With 20% down, that's $83,400 in cash. If you save $500 a month, which most can't, that's 14 years of perfect saving. No emergencies, no setbacks, no life. So they opted out, not because they're impulsive, because the goal is mathematically unreachable, and they'd rather live now than save for a future that keeps moving further away. Morgan Stanley research shows millennials are the most financially literate generation ever. They know compound interest. They understand opportunity cost. They've run the numbers, and the numbers say they're screwed either way. So they made a choice. If financial stability is a myth, they'll take the memories instead. The economy can crash, the job market can collapse, political chaos can erupt, but nobody can take away that week you spent in Thailand or that concert where you cried. It's not reckless. It's calculated nihilism. They're not saving for retirement because they've seen 3 once-in-a-lifetime economic crises and they're only 35. The system kept changing the rules, so they stopped playing. Let's talk about the darker side. Retail therapy isn't just a joke for millennials. It's a coping mechanism for a generation that's been in survival mode since 2008. Doom spending became an actual term in 2023.
The oh yeah phenomenon of buying things because everything feels hopeless anyway. A study by Intuit Credit Karma found 27% of millennials admit to spending money to cope with stress about the economy. That's not shopping, that's self-medication. Think about what they've lived through. Graduated into a recession, watched the housing market collapse, lived through a pandemic, endured historic inflation, watched climate disasters accelerate, political chaos, and constant economic instability. And they're supposed to be calm about money? The psychology here is actually pretty straightforward. When you can't control the big things, you control the small things. Can't afford therapy? Add to cart. Stressed about your job? Online shopping. Anxious about the future? There's a little dopamine hit waiting in that package notification. Researchers call it compensatory consumption, buying things to fill emotional voids. But for millennials, it's deeper than that. It's about creating tiny moments of control in a life that feels completely out of control. And here's the really dark part. They know they're doing it. A CNBC survey found 73% of millennials have anxiety about money. They're not oblivious. They're fully aware they're trauma spending. They just can't stop because the trauma never stops. The treat yourself culture isn't about entitlement. It's survival. When the world is burning and your future looks grim, that $47 candle or $6 latte becomes a small act of defiance. A tiny rebellion that says, I'm allowed to have something good, even if it's just this moment. It's not healthy, but it's human. So here's what millennial money psychology really tells us. They're not financially irresponsible. They're financially realistic about an unrealistic situation. They followed every rule, got the degrees, worked the jobs, did everything the system promised would lead to success. And the system failed them spectacularly. So they adapted. They stopped buying things they'll never afford. They stopped saving for goals that keep moving. They started spending on what can't be repossessed. Experiences, moments, small joys in an uncertain world. They're not the poorest rich generation because they're bad with money. They're the poorest rich generation because they inherited an economy that promised prosperity and delivered debt, instability, and broken dreams. And honestly, their response makes perfect sense. When the game is rigged, you stop playing by the rules. Your money habits aren't random. They're responses to the world that shaped you. And millennials' responses are exactly what you'd expect from a generation that did everything right and still lost.